edition of the On the Mic podcast, and I think I'm going to run out of voice cords and the ability to say that in the coming days. I think leading up to Bellator 291, I'm probably looking somewhere to between 6 to 10 videos, but no more important than this one. It's been far too long, and honestly, like I don't want to pick a fight with an Irishman because I'm not that stupid, but I'm gonna have to. Might have to fight this guy if we continue to only talk once a year. He is the one and only from Severe MMA and My MMA News. We're colleagues there. The co-host of the All Triangle Irish MMA podcast, Andy Stevenson, as I adjust my camera because it continues to fall. How are you, sir?
What's the crack, Mike? How are you? Thank you for having me on again. And yeah, it's been a while. I was trying to think when the last time it was around this time last year, was it? Before the Bellator show?
It was the last springtime Bellator Dublin show.
Yeah. So, we'll have to do one in September now this time.
Yeah, well, or sooner than that. I mean, listen, I don't know. I feel like I'm stepping on toes when Bellator goes to Dublin because you guys do such great work at Severe MMA. And then here's this American out of Chicago trying to talk to every single Irish fighter before the events. I don't think Severe has
not
anybody.
At all. I think it kind of speaks to the magnitude of those events, right? Where they're kind of met in some ways Bellator's marquee events of the year. From a crowd perspective, I feel like everyone is ready to see that Irish crowd. Obviously, Bellator put on the Hawaii shows are great too, and when they have the big title fights, they're of interest. But it seems that the focus, at least from a media perspective, is typically on the Irish shows.
Yeah, I would say this, and I've been saying it to almost every fighter I talked to this week. Here in the States, we just had the NFL, the American Football Super Bowl. Well, from a fighting aspect, every Bellator Dublin event is my Super Bowl. You can give me a Conor McGregor return. You can give me a John Jones return in the UFC. Hell, Francis Ngannou can fight Tyson Fury. Bellator Dublin shows are my Super Bowl.
Why do you say that?
The crowd, the atmosphere, and I think the easiest way to put it is there's no bullshit. There is no the way the cards are built through Bellator for these Dublin shows is the crowd knows the first fighter on the card, if it's an Irish fighter, and they're packing the 3 arena. I'm not saying every seat in the house is filled, but how many times, Andy, have you watched a UFC show? You start at the early prelims and 85% of the arena is empty, and then it slowly but surely trickles in. But for me, I think Bellator has very good awareness of who to put on the card, where to put them on the card, and what fighters at the top, if they're not, for example, Amasov and Logan Storley, neither are from Ireland, but the way they build their cards for these events, it doesn't need to be a 3 title fight night in the UFC in order for me to get pumped. I think the atmosphere, the fight card building, the matchmaking, all of it, it all makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, like I think they know what they have in their hands there, don't they? Like and you're right, it's typically, and I'm looking at it may change a little bit looking at this or next week's card. But I do think that typically what they try to get some names in early on the card and get a crowd in. Oftentimes with Irish shows, when they first started coming over, I remember going to one, and it was kind of the event or the crowd was a little bit segregated as far as like gyms. So it was like your SBG Ireland, there'd be some Team Rhino guys, which is another Irish gym in Dublin that produced Neil Seary and Paul Redmond amongst others, and some other various gyms, and you would see them kind of trickle out or trickle in and out as once their fighters are gone, they're out of there. Whereas nowadays, I think it's less just kind of the MMA community from a gym perspective, and more Bellator have built this event where it's a night out for the Irish fans, and of course it's the SBG show these days. We don't see any other gyms on the card anymore. It's they have a very strong relationship with SBG, and that's what you can expect now. The one thing I will say is that this event I'm seeing, it's Kassan, Magomed Sharapov, and Rafael Hudson are going to kick it off, and then it's Stephen Hill versus Joel Kouadja, and I can't see the Irish fans. I can't see them all being there for those first two fights, if I'm honest. But they will be boisterous and they will be loud. Whoever's in there, they'll make some noise. But I think it'll probably be once, after that it's Daniele Scatizzi, who's an SBG guy, but maybe not quite well known. And then Kenny Mokanwana is the first Irish fight. So it'll probably, when Kenny walks out in fight number 4, that's when you'll start to hear the Irish crowd this time.
Absolutely. And I just look at like someone I'll be speaking to, in the lead up is a Jenna Bishop, right? Somebody that's super well known in the jiu-jitsu world. She's not obviously no Irish ties, but undefeated, just signed with Bellator. And like we've been talking about already, I feel like Norbert Noveni, who I posted a podcast with, they sometimes they just know, hey, this fighter may not have SBG ties or Irish ties, but maybe this is with that crowd, with this atmosphere, with the eyes on the world inside the Bellator cage. Maybe this is the right time to have this fight go on or have this fighter compete. So I definitely agree with you. I mean, I'm not expecting start to finish a ruckus crowd and everybody's going crazy from fight 1 to the main event. But and Andy, you know me a little bit. Wish you knew me better, which means we would talk more. But that's on me. But I look at other things outside of what we see inside the cage, and I think Yaroslav Amosov coming back and fighting for something so much more than just a world title, given his home country in Ukraine, where he had to barricade his belt as he went to war. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy. The Irish love fighting, and there's so much history of war times in Ireland. Like, I cannot see, and I love Logan Storley. I think he is a hell of a fighter, but I cannot see the Irish going against Amosov in this fight, because I don't care who you are. If you know what's happening in the world and you know what's happening in Ukraine, it's almost impossible to root against him.
Yeah, I mean, his story, the comeback story is incredible. I can't even imagine what that guy has gone through in the last couple of years. I saw him. I've been down in SBG Ireland a few times now over the last couple of weeks, and he's actually been training there in the lead up to the fight. So I imagine he's probably just finishing his camp off there. But yeah, I think they'll probably get behind him to come back, like after, as you said, making the decision after the Russian invasion to go and protect his country and fight for his country and leave his family in a safe zone and go to the front line I can't even comprehend it. And I'm sure he's seen and experienced things that most humans thankfully will never, ever have to. But to then, kind of park that all aside and compartmentalize it and then come back and train and fight a guy to reclaim your title. I know, he still is the champion, but Logan Storley has that interim belt now. And going into a rematch with a guy you fought before, to a split decision, a contentious decision to some, that takes a lot. It's. I suppose he's probably, anything he's experienced, or what he's going to experience in any sort of cage is nothing compared to probably what he's experienced over the last 2 years. But yeah, I think it's a story that is incredible and definitely one that you can get behind, and I think the Irish fans will certainly root for him.
Yeah, and it's a hell of a story. Let's talk about the other side as we break down Bellator 291 here. Mike Pendleton, Andy Stevenson of Severe MMA and MyMMAnews.com. Logan Storley, right? I was just kind of looking here off to the side. 3 split decisions in his last 4 fights. We know the comeback story of Amosov. We know they're unifying their belts. And we honestly probably know the crowd will play a factor in pushing these guys to kind of throw it all out there from the very beginning. If I'm Logan Storley, and Andy, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but 3 split decisions in my last 4 fights, I've got to go out there. If I'm Logan Storley, I've got to make a statement, and I might be in quote unquote enemy territory if the Irish fans do get behind Amosov. I think no better time than this fight for Logan Storley to look to get a finish, look to unify the belt, and really claim his place there at the top of the division as the champion. But 3 split decisions in the last 4 fights, that doesn't It doesn't make me too confident looking at that side.
Yeah, look, it's a difficult spot to be in with the Irish fans, because it's like, just being honest, it's not a fight that I would have expected to be the main event of this card. I think maybe a bigger, like, for as impressive as competitors as Logan Storley and Yaroslav Amosov are, they're not exactly household names in MMA. The hardcores will know them. They'll know their grappling capabilities. That it should be a very, technical, entertaining, or well, a very technical chess match probably that'll play out. But when you've got a lot of drunken Irish fans who have been there for a while, I think there's something like 20 fights or 18 fights or something crazy. There's always so many. It needs to be an entertaining fight. Like, I just think back to the last event, watching the Peter Queally versus Benson Henderson. Peter Queally's a fan favorite, but like, that was painful for fans to watch. It wasn't an entertaining fight. And also Peter Queally was just kind of getting dominated throughout it. So for the Irish fans, I hope they don't leave. I hope that this is an entertaining fight. And I think that, if it's an entertaining fight, they'll stay and they'll enjoy it. But there's been a few times where these events where, the fans start to trickle out because either it's not going an Irish fighter's way, or it's just it's just a bit of a wet squib.
Well, as we always do, or as we did last year, we'll do again this year. We'll preview this main card, and then you could throw out a couple names that you want to see on the prelims. And yes, it is an 18-fight card event. So thank you for that, because I've been trying to get some local bar establishments near me that don't show Showtime. I'm like, can you guys just, I'll bring a group, I'll bring some people out. Like, can you make this exception for me? When I tell them there's going to be 18 fights, I'm pretty sure people are going to shit themselves. So I know that I'm not on duty for that event, which is great. So I'll be enjoying it as someone who just enjoys the sport, which means there may or may not be alcoholic beverages consumed. Either way, there will be plenty in the arena. And you talk about the main event, you need a great table setter. And what better table setter than Pedro Carvalho and Jeremy Kennedy? I talked to both men this week. It's a number one contenders fight. It's a title eliminator fight. They both want the belt. Jeremy Kennedy coming into enemy territory. Pedro's telling me he doesn't care. Jeremy's saying he's the A side in this fight. He's coming over. He's going to burn the boats, and he's going to take everything in this fight. I mean, just from talking to those two alone, I'm fired up. How good is this fight?
Yeah, this is like, I'm really, really looking forward to this fight. Pedro Carvalho is a guy, he's from Portugal, from a town called Guimarães in Portugal, and he didn't have an amazing start to his pro career. He moved over to Ireland and joined SBG, and then he went on this run on the Irish regional scene, fighting for a promotion called Cage Legacy, and I think he won a title there. And from there, he was kind of on a straight shoot to the title in Bellator. And this is a guy who, I've kind of joked with him before, he looks older than he is. Like, this guy, he's only 27, and I think he was 24 or 25. He went on a streak in Bellator and fought for the title against Patricio Pitbull, got knocked out in the first round, and from there he struggled a little bit. He looked to rebound against a tough undefeated fighter in JJ Wilson, and again got stopped. And it seemed like all this momentum that Pedro had behind him was starting to disappear. And he's had some wins and losses since then. But I feel like his game has really, really come on the last while. He had a very close decision, a contentious one that he still to this day believes he won against Piotr Niedzielski not too long ago, and then followed that up with just a career best performance, in my opinion, the last time out in Dublin against Mads Burnell. And to be honest, I picked Mads Burnell going into that fight. I thought it was going to be maybe just a bridge too far for Pedro at that time, but he really proved me wrong, and I proved a lot of people wrong that night. And himself and Jeremy Kennedy have been calling each other out for a long time, and I agree with you completely that this is a number one contender fight. I think that for Pedro, he's right up there now again, right up there at the top of the division. And I think the winner here will fight for a title. Jeremy Kennedy's got a tough fight in his hands, but so does Pedro. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. If Jeremy can come in and upset here, it's a big statement. Obviously coming off that win against Aaron Pico, where I think that was the weird one where Pico had the shoulder injury or something.
Injury,
yeah. But like, to put away a guy like Pedro Carvalho, who's I think Pedro just continues to walk forward at you. Like, I think this would be a really while the main event has the potential, I'm hopeful it'll be a great fight. It has the potential to maybe be not as much of a crowd pleaser. I think this one will be a war, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Pedro told me he wants to be smart, but when it goes to deep waters, he will still be the savage that we all know him to be. And that got me fired up. For Jeremy Kennedy, obviously going into enemy territory, that's nothing new for him. He's pretty much fought all over the world. He said the only place now is Ireland and Japan are the only two places he hasn't gone into enemy territory. You're talking about a guy who's defeated Aaron Pico, given the injury, and Emmanuel Sanchez in his last two fights. Those names are no slouches. But with all that being said, let's talk about what like the outside factor of this fight, right? The crowd is going to be insane. And one thing Pedro told me is that he does feel as he is the adopted son of Ireland, and he carries that flag with so much pride, and he will continue to do so. You mentioned the two losses. He said in another interview during that time that it was rock bottom for him. Was during that time the loss of Patricio, then the loss of JJ Wilson, and now he's saying it's all kind of coming together at the right time in Ireland with this fight against Jeremy Kennedy. With all of that in mind, what would this fight mean to Team SBG, to people in the crowd? We know what it means to Pedro. We know what it means to Jeremy. Somebody's getting a title shot there. But for Pedro, going through these ups and downs and a roller coaster, like you said, he went from a rocket ship straight to the top to a roller coaster, and now he's just trying to go and stay fair and even and get himself to a title shot. What do you think that does for the team there?
Yeah, I mean, like the team is so big, but I think what it shows is the resilience, and that it's not just a flash in the pan. So like for Bellator, with SBG's relationship with Bellator and with John Kavanagh's relationship with Bellator, there's been a huge focus on the gym, and so far they haven't been able to overcome that hurdle of claiming a Bellator title. Peter Queally fought for a title and he lost. Sinead Kavanagh fought for the title, she lost, and then also the aforementioned Pedro Carvalho. And I think that this would, I think it'll be different, where Pedro is just he's a better fighter than he used to be. It's as simple as that. And for SBG, I think it would be huge to win a title, for the amount of effort and spotlight and focus that's been put on the gym as a result of these Dublin shows. I think coming away with a belt is, it would kind of be like it would obviously be a crowning moment, but it can also be like, okay, well, we deserve this, or we're delivering our side of the bargain here, that it's not just a fun night out for the fans, it's also we can compete with the best in the world. And I think that's what's still to be proven. There's some great fighters in the gym, but at the end of the day, everyone wants the belt. So if Pedro can kind of finally overcome that hurdle and challenge and win for a belt, I think it'll be a huge feather in his cap, and also for the team, and also just for Pedro himself. This is a guy who's got he's got a girlfriend and two kids at home in Portugal, and he lives away from them. So like that's a huge amount of commitment to kind of leave your family behind in pursuit of a dream and greater opportunities for them and all that. And he was telling me, I spoke to him just last week. He was telling me, I never realized this. Like I knew he's told the story before, where he arrived on the bus after getting off the airport, and he got off the bus at the 3 Arena, and then a couple of years later, he's having these huge fights there. But he also worked for a period as a cleaner in Tala Hospital, which is one of the hospitals in Dublin. So he's really worked his ass off and put everything into this. So to then come within reaching distance of the summit and fail, and then fail again, and then have another loss, and then get back up there, that takes a huge amount of resilience and drive. And like in the gym, Pedro, anytime I'm in there, you hear him. He's a leader in SBG at the moment. I spoke with a young amateur fighter, Gary Rooney, who described, I was talking because Richie Smullen's another guy who's coming back in this card. And he talked about how Pedro is the vocal one. Like he'll be the guy driving others on. And I've seen them doing their cardio sessions where it's him and Carl Moore and some of the other, the imports, the Italian guys that are in SBG at the moment. And he's the one kind of coaching, leading the way. So I do think he's seen as a leader in SBG, and it would boost the gym if he were to succeed.
Well, we know it's the hometown's main event, even though it's the co-main event. You mentioned a few names we're going to see on this main card. Let's start with Sinead Kavanaugh. And I'm not trying to shamelessly plug, my interviews, but
Do it.
just trying to bring in some, topic of conversation. She'll face Janae Harding in a rematch from about 5 years ago. You mentioned, Pedro, Sinead, and Peter Queally all fighting for belts and coming up short. Well, Sinead told me that she will be incomplete without a belt. And if it takes this, she will fight until she's in her 40s to get that belt. We're finally seeing some movement in the featherweight division. Arlene Blenko fighting Sarah McMahon. Chris Cyborg kind of just waiting there. Leah McCourt, Kat Zingano. But Sinead Kavanaugh, a year to the day from tearing her ACL, I already knew the Irish athletes were different. In the NFL here in America, you tear your ACL, you're out for 12 months, 14 months, 16 months, sometimes 18 months. Sinead Kavanaugh, 365 days to the year. She's getting back in the cage. She's looking to avenge her loss to Janae Harding, but she's also looking to send a statement and get back to that title shot. What does Sinead have to do against Janae Harding in order to secure another shot at Chris Cyborg?
It's a good question. And I don't think the answer is clear cut, to be honest with you, because if you recall, as Sinead was getting carried out by John Kavanagh and Conor McGregor after defeating Leah McCourt with her, her leg in bits, and a great win, despite the injury, we had Scott Coker and the Bellator team announcing that Sinead was going to be rematching Chris Cyborg for the title. That obviously never came to fruition. I don't know why they did that. That was probably just some sort of promotional tool and the worst possible timing when it's very clear. I don't think Sinead's fighting anyone anytime soon. But, Sinead's right up there. So I think if do you know what? If Leah McCourt wasn't fighting Kat Zingano, I would say I think a win here and she'll be going in for the title. But I heard Sinead speaking on another podcast. I can't remember which one it was. But she was saying that she wants another fight before this. So I think, assuming that, Cyborg had said that she wanted to come back and that she was expecting to fight, she wants to fight Kat Zingano, but it seems that she's saying anyway that Kat Zingano's ducking her and that she wanted to fight Leah McCourt in Dublin and all this stuff. I think Leah McCourt versus Kat Zingano will determine the next number one contender in the division. And then I think Sinead, I would love to see a rematch against Leslie Smith would be what I would like to see next. I think that's a very contentious decision for Sinead. I know it's one that she really wants. There's bad blood there, and she can kind of go on her revenge tour of avenging her losses against Janae Harding here, and maybe the Smith rematch, and then fight for the title after that. And who knows? Like, it's hard to know with Cyborg where she's going to be, if she's going to stay with boxing, if she's going to be back in Bellator. Be interested to see how the McCourt and Zingano fight plays out, and if Cyborg is still the champion at such a point when Sinead is ready herself to go back for the title. Because look, you said it yourself, it's not a fun injury to come back from. So I think she's smart to not just say, right, I want Cyborg right now. You want to be going into that fight on full health and get this fight out of the way, see how you feel, see how the leg holds up, and then go on from there, really.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly, a revenge tour, but also, I mean, we're in a legitimate, there's a true possible chance that, let's say it's Janae Harding and one more for Sinead Kavanaugh. After that second fight, there is a real possibility Chris Cyborg isn't the champion anymore. Not because of loss, but because simply if she's not getting a fight, if she's not fighting Kat Zingano or Leah McCourt, and by the way, if I'm Sinead, I'm a little pissed off if Lee beats Kat Zingano, like that's my title fight. But you take the road less traveled if you're Sinead Kavanaugh. Not a lot of people would do what she's doing. They would want that next fight, whether or not they're 100% healed or not. They would want a shot at redemption. This signed me up for the revenge tour all day long. And I believe our guy, Peter Queally, best MMA walkout in the world. I don't know. I don't know if there's anyone who can compete with that. But Peter Queally will take on Bryce Logan. And I guess really, where does Queally go from here? Obviously, Bryce Logan is no slouch, but you talked about coming up short in the Patricky Pitbull fight. Obviously, Benson Henderson loss is a tough loss, but where does Peter Queally go from here, and how is he entering this fight against Bryce Logan?
I think where does Peter Queally go from here? I think he just needs a win, really, doesn't he? Like I think we've seen him up fighting against top guys like Patricky Pitbull and Benson Henderson, and by the sounds thing, he wasn't making excuses, but I heard him speak recently. He was saying he wasn't kind of fully fit or fully he didn't train a whole lot ahead of that fight because of an injury. But I think this is a sensible step back. It's a significant step back from his more recent opponents, and I think that Peter kind of just needs to find his feet again and get a win in there, and probably get a few wins, and I wouldn't be looking at the top of the division right now for Peter. I think it's just a case of getting some momentum behind him again, really. I know Peter's a hard-nosed guy. He's tough, he's resilient, and I think he thrives best in fights where people will stand toe to toe with him. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know a huge amount about Bryce Logan. When I kind of had to look him up when the fight was announced, but he's lost his last couple of fights as well to Georgie Karkanian, Mike Hamill, and Mandel Nallo, all on Bellator. So I think this is probably a fight that's set up for Peter Queally, not set up for him to win, but it's an easier task than the likes of a Benson Henderson or a Patricky Pitbull. So, as you said, he's got a fantastic walkout, one of the best in the sport, and it's been a tough few fights for the Irish crowd watching Peter Queally. You get the great walkout, but then just the results have not been going his way the last few. So maybe this will be one where the Irish fans can sing Zombie and then have a celebration after. Like, I think back to his fight with Ryan Scope in Dublin, and that was just incredible. Like, he got dropped hard with a high kick, I think it was, by Scope, a fighter out of Newcastle who had come very close to winning the title himself against Patricky Pitbull. And he pulled it out of the bag. He came back, he won, he got the finish, and the crowd it was just insane. So I think the Irish crowd wants more of those nights with Peter, rather than being excited to see him and then ultimately getting disappointed by the result.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about the last few fights for Peter Queally, and it definitely not a setup. Sometimes MMA fans and the people behind the Twitter keyboards, they want to hear that and kind of run with it. There's no easy fight in the MMA world. I think we all know that. That's why even on the gambling side, and I respect everyone who does everything in this sport, but the gambling side is so funny to me because it's a fight. And yes, you can train, and yes, but one day you could have a fight and your body just doesn't turn on. And that's just it. Like, you're just out of it. You just can't get going. It happens. It's literally a fight. It's not a soccer match or a American football game or a basketball game where you're a better team. So I do think this is a fight that was made for Peter Queally to kind of right his wrongs. But this isn't going to be someone that Bryce Logan's not going to just lay down and be like, all right, punch me in the face. So I do like it. But then we've got, to open the main card, we've got an undefeated man, one of the very best young fighters, not just in coming out of Ireland, but just really in the sport. And that's Ciaran Clark. I mean, take it away, Andy. This man is a savage and spent all his time with Bellator, and he gets another one here.
Yeah, I love watching Ciaran Clark fights. They're hard to watch from a fan perspective. If you're an Irish fan, Ciaran Clark comes from a place called Drogheda. Yellow Batter is the specific place in Drogheda. This is his area where it's Drogheda's a place where there's kind of a high crime rate, and maybe fewer opportunities for people like Ciaran, and the way that he has kind of emerged as almost like a hero of his people, where he sells hundreds and hundreds of tickets for these events. He brings a huge crowd down from Drogheda with him to Dublin. So it's about an hour north of Dublin. And he has just put on these incredible performances. I remember I watched Ciaran Clark's, I was there for his pro debut, and it was a post limb. So there was too many fights had gone on. It had gone too long, and the crowd there was still a huge crowd for Ciaran there. And this is like kind of after midnight at this point, and he dominated another Irish fighter from Northern Ireland called George Courtney. And since then, he's just he's been winning and winning and winning. But the intriguing part of Kieran Clark's fights are he looks like he's about to lose, and then he just manages to pull these performances out of the bag. Like and his last one was probably the worst of them against Rafael Hudson, where he got dropped multiple times throughout the rounds, and he just finds a way. Like there's something about Kieran where he finds a way to win. He's a fantastic grappler. Where I would say the danger areas for him are it's just the damage he takes on the feet. So I'm sure he's been working on that and working on his boxing and kickboxing and his defense and all that. But the Jordan Barton fight, the Abu Tunkara fight, the Rafael Hudson fight, he gets it. I'll put it bluntly, he gets a bit fucked up before he ends up winning. But he wins, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. He's 6-0. He was supposed to be fighting a guy called Keir Harvey, who trains out of higher level MMA in Scotland. A very solid gym, but Keir had to pull out of the fight because he got this infection. I saw actually he sent me a photo of it. It looked pretty disgusting. So he had to pull out, but now going in against a guy called Leonardo Sinis. So ultimately for Bellator, I think they just want Kieran on the card. He's going to sell a heap of tickets. But he's definitely a guy that has a huge amount of potential. And I think in time, like maybe towards the back end of 2023, I'd like to see him, let's see how this fight goes. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a submission finish here again. And then maybe a step up in competition. So, maybe not even a ranked guy, but like someone right around that area where, we can start getting him into the lower end of the rankings and move him on up from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that as well. All right, Andy, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You willing to make some main card picks here?
Oh, yeah. Go on. Why not?
All right. I'm going to give you I'll just read them off and I'll just have you pick. And then a couple more things. I know we're crunched on time, but I want to get a couple more things in here with you. So we'll start with the Kieran Clark fight against Leonardo Sinis. I think you already said it. I'm taking Kieran Clark. Who you as well?
I'm going to go Kieran Clark first round submission.
All right. I'm not good at predicting finishes and rounds, so I'm just going to leave that to you. Peter Queally, Bryce Logan. I think we both talked about how this is I don't want to call it a must need win, but it'd be nice to see Peter Queally get back and win. And I think Bryce Logan kind of sets up as a perfect matchup for him. Yeah,
I'm going to back Peter Queally. It's been, I don't think I backed him last time, but I'll back him this time. I think Queally by decision.
Sinead Kavanaugh, Janae Harding. Does she right this wrong here with Janae Harding from 5 years ago?
I think she does. I think Sinead, at the time, she lost to Janae Harding. It was a doctor stoppage. She had a pretty gnarly cut in her face. But I think, in that fight, I thought I had Sinead ahead on the scorecards. I think Sinead's gotten better since then. I think that Sinead will win this one. I think she'll probably put on a patient performance. And I could see this going 3 rounds. I think this will probably be Sinead Kavanagh decision.
Pedro Carvalho, Jeremy Kennedy. For my money, and a big shout out to our guy Ariel Hawani for always coining this term, the people's main event. I think it is the people's main event. I think this fight is going to blow the roof off this place in the 3 Arena. You probably shouldn't even have a roof on the 3 Arena for this fight. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that you mentioned something earlier on that Pedro's gas tank is phenomenal, and he seems to grow into fights. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Jeremy Kennedy having some success earlier on, and then Pedro taking over as the fight progresses. Again, I think I'm going to go to. I think there's going to be a lot of decisions on this main card. I think Carvalho by decision, but I think he puts a stamp on it.
Well, if Andy Stevenson's calling these fights correctly, it's going to be a hell of a night in Dublin, and it'll top off with Yaroslav Amosov against Logan Storley. They're unifying the welterweight title. I've got Amosov for kind of all the outside reasons. I really don't know what Logan Storley or anyone in this world could bring inside of a cage fight to Amosov that he hasn't been through. But the other side of it is maybe the focus isn't there. Maybe, there's too much concern about what's going on in real life, and the fight is second nature or, second consideration to him. So we'll see. But for me, I'm not going to go against the guy who, he's a badass in the cage. Just forget the outside stuff. This man is unstoppable. And Logan Storley only 1 loss on his record. But like I said earlier, 3 split decisions in your last 4 fights. Sometimes you could blame judging, but other times I just want to see more. Amosov undefeated. I think that continues here.
Yeah, it's this is a tough one. I'm still going back and forth on it right now. And for similar reasons as yourself, like it's my only concern, like my instinct is to pick Amosov here. My only concern is there's some unknowns here. Like how much has he been training over the last number of years? Has he been able to commit to his training fully? But I do think that I think he can get it done. And you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say Amosov submission, and we'll go round 3.
I love it. I love it. All right. Can you give me just 3 names that you're excited to see on the prelim portion of this fight night?
3 names that I'm excited to see. Okay, let's go. Let's have a look down this card.
Don't piss
I
anyone
am
off, by the way.
I can definitely give you 3 names. So I'm really excited to see. So I'll actually choose a non-Irish fighter here. I'm really, really excited to see Norbert Novenyi Jr.
Yeah.
I think he's an absolutely supreme talent. I watched him knock out, or no, sorry, he didn't knock him out. I think it went to decision in the end, but he came very close to knocking out Will Fleury, an Irish guy in Dublin. And like this is when Norbert Novenyi was early 20s. He was only a couple of fights into his pro. I think he was maybe 3-0 at the time. He's only 5-0 now. And he just looked fantastic. Like he comes out of London Shoe Fighters, a very, very solid gym that's produced the likes of Michael Venom Page. I think he's absolutely phenomenal on the feet. He's been injured for a long time, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing him come back. He's facing a guy that's 35-fight veteran, Andy Manzolo, but I think if we see the Norbert Novenyi Jr. that we saw before the injury, I think he probably messes him up, and I think he'll get a KO. I'm also really excited to see. Do you know what? I'll choose more than 3. Really excited to see Carl Moore. Carl Moore had an incredible performance in his last fight. He'd been out for 3 years and he came back. This is, Carl Moore he originally fought out of Fight Academy Ireland, up north in Belfast. He won the Cage Warriors light heavyweight title and looked really, really good. He moved up in weight and tried to become the first double champion in Cage Warriors since Conor McGregor. He failed. He got knocked out in fighting for the heavyweight title, and then we kind of didn't see him for a bit. He came back, fought in Bellator. He moved down to SBG as his new gym. And then he fought, and then he was out for 3 years. So he came back and he fought Carl Albrechtsen last time out. He got hurt late in the first round, almost got kind of saved by the bell, and he managed to pull off this comeback submission in the second round, which was just fantastic. I think to do that after 3 years off is very impressive against a guy like Carl Albrechtsen. I was expecting a bigger fight, a bigger name for Carl Moore here. He didn't get it. He's fighting a guy in Maciek Rozansky, who knocked out Will Fleury, Carl Moore's teammate, who's now fighting for a PFL $1 million at light heavyweight not too long ago, a couple of years ago. So I'm really looking forward to see how Carl looks again, especially, he's not coming off a long layoff. He just fought there, 6 months ago or so. So that'll be very intriguing. A couple of other guys I'm excited to see. Richie Smullen is returning to Bellator. Richie Smullen is another SBG guy who he had a decent run in Bellator his first time out. Maybe didn't have the most exciting style. Very pressure heavy grappler. Like if you talk to anyone in SBG Ireland, he's the worst round to go with from a grappling perspective. I think Peter Queally labeled him the best grappler in the gym, and people just say he's absolutely miserable to be on, to have him on top of you, whether it's jiu-jitsu, wrestling, whatever. He just puts a grinding, horrible pace on people where they just can't move or breathe. He went away and won 2 belts in a Ukrainian promotion called RFP, I think a Real Fight promotion. I don't know, it's hard to put too much weight into those because you don't really know the level of competition you're facing, but he's been getting finishes. His last 3 fights, he's gotten finishes, and now he's returning to Bellator. So the reason why I think this fight is very intriguing as well is Piotr Nizelski. He's not ranked for, I don't know why, but he's beaten Pedro Carvalho, last time out. So if you're talking about Pedro Carvalho fighting in a number 1 contender fight, this guy's just beating him and he's not ranked. It doesn't make much sense to me. But if Richie Smullen could come in here, return to Bellator, first time fighting in Ireland in a few years, and beat a guy like Piotr Nizelski, that puts him right in the mix in the featherweight division, and leaves John Kavanagh and the matchmakers and Pedro Carvalho and himself with some conundrums to probably look at down the road as to how they managed to two teammates at the top of the division. So there's a lot more fights. I could go on and on about the Irish fighters, but that's some really intriguing. Sorry, one more actually.
Yes.
And look, I'm sure I'll get given out to for. There's a ton of them. Like Derek Kelly's interesting. He's dropping to featherweight, but Asela Juge is the guy that everyone is talking about coming out of SBG Ireland. A French kickboxer, now has some grappling under his belt at this point. I think he's a blue or a purple belt now at this point. but yeah, he's a savage. He had a phenomenal KO in his last fight in Dublin, and he will be one to watch.
I can't wait, and don't want to take up much more of your time. I know we got a few minutes left, and I really appreciate you making time for me to do this. I
Yeah, you're
figured
good.
out
We,
one
we, we
thing.
can go a few more minutes as well if you need to. I'm all
Uh,
good.
one thing I figured out. I figured out a way that you and I can do these shows more often. I'm gonna have to do my homework and my due diligence, but think maybe in 2023 I'm gonna add Cage Warriors to my kind of the list of things to do. And when we get these big Cage Warrior shows, me and you crack a mic if you're available, and
Yeah,
I'd be more than happy to do it, man.
absolutely. I mean, and if there was ever a year from an Irish perspective, this is a huge year for the country. You know, it kind of as it turned from 2022 into 2023, it just exploded, and we got all these announcements. And Cage Warriors are returning to Dublin for the first time in years in April, the Saturday the 29th of April for Cage Warriors 153, where we've got so many Irish fighters competing. The PFL are also coming to town in December so the PFL announced their European Challenger Series. And there's 3 Irish fighters in that. So we've got Franz Malambo, a guy who's very heavily embedded in Conor McGregor's camps, during his rise in the UFC. We've got, who's the other two? Dylan Took, another guy, a former SBG guy, was then with Team KF in Dublin and is now fighting out of Scotland. And John Mitchell, who's another promising lightweight. Those two, Took and Mitchell, are actually in the same division. But PFL are coming back to Dublin in December for the finals. So the finals of their entire European Challenger Series will be then. So we've got Bellator February 25th, Cage Warriors in the April 29th. Then we'll have Bellator again in September, most likely. That's typically been their pattern. And then we'll have PFL in December. So anytime, I'm happy to jump on and chat some Irish MMA. It'll save my poor fiance from having to listen to me.
Well, my relationship probably be put in danger because I definitely want to come over by some point this year. I think I told you last year it's a dream of mine to do the Bellator Dublin event, but really, you talk about Cage Warriors, you talk about PFL, you talk about Bellator again. There's 3 opportunities after next weekend to get there this year. So if I can make it happen, that's the other part of this question is, are you my official tour guide when I touched down in Ireland for the first time ever?
Absolutely. I think a VPN just connected there. My laptop and cut out for a second, but yeah, you should come on over. We can show you the sites and show you a good old fashioned Irish fight night.
I would absolutely love that. Now we talked about it. You just mentioned him. Conor McGregor is back. Filming started, I believe, last night or today in Las Vegas for the Ultimate Fighter season 31. He is now going to face Michael Chandler at a later time. First and foremost, just give me a pulse of the nation, if you will. Conor's back. Now, this isn't 2015, 16, anything like that. And it's the Ultimate Fighter. But just him getting his fight announced, does it get any movement now, where you're at? Does it matter anymore?
It matters. I think, look, it's vastly different how Conor is perceived nowadays versus when he was rising, when he was, he was the Conor McGregor who was lifting a nation with them and taking them on a journey to the belts. It's just different now. I think I'm putting it bluntly, the headlines have not been good for Conor, and they're for, I would say, 90% these days are for his outside the cage instances or whatever these days. So I think it's probably just a relief for a lot of people that the focus is on Conor in a sporting capacity, in the Ultimate Fighter, having a fight. So there's probably a long way to go to turn that tide. And of course, look, there's a lot of people in Ireland who are still diehard Conor McGregor fans. Don't get me wrong, but it's just not the same as it used to be. And I think as much as people would like it to be the way it was in 2015, it's just not. And I think that's just a reality that we kind of have to face up to.
I think the unfortunate analogy and comparison is he's the Irish version of John Jones. People say money changes people. And, obviously John has done a little bit more reckless things than Conor has. But, you start comparing those two. You never want to compare your legal records, to 2 people with a history like that. So it's unfortunate. But from a matchup
not great for the pound for pound debate is add that as a criteria, your legal records.
Yeah, right. Pound for pound, I would take them 2 as number 1 and number 2 currently in the UFC with their legal issues. But with that being said, just talk about the fight, and then I get you out of here. Good matchup for Conor, because I mean, I just saw John Kavanaugh's thoughts on it. Kind of compared it to the Chad Mendes fight. I thought that was a beautiful comparison. Unfortunately, I don't think the aura is there, but I do think Michael Chandler is the perfect dance partner for Conor McGregor if we get a focused and confident, which he always is, but a focused and kind of hungry Conor McGregor. Michael Chandler is the perfect fight for him.
Yeah, I think it's a great fight. I think in many ways, because like you like in a sporting capacity, I like when Conor McGregor has a bit of venom to coming out of him. Now I don't like the Khabib Conor saga that went on and the areas that touched on, but like there's been some great build-ups, and I think that Chandler is kind of a perfect B-side to McGregor's A-side. He's a guy who is great on the mic, a little bit cheesy, but like that's kind of perfect. And it'll be interesting to see. I think McGregor is probably not the fighter he once was. And how could you be after going through the injuries he's come through, and also I don't. It's unclear how much the dedication has been there, and how could it be when you're a multi-millionaire with, I don't know, 7, 8, God knows how many businesses he has these days. Does he have the mic skills that he used to? Like, is he still as quick-witted? Is he, the Ultimate Fighter last time against Uriah Faber? He was brilliant. Like I thought it was completely entertaining, and I'll tune in for this one. I think that people will watch the Ultimate Fighter for Conor. Like he still draws eyeballs for good or for bad. And I think I'm hoping that this would be a nice, fun version of Conor McGregor that we see on there. As far as the fight itself, I think it's brilliant. I think Chandler is just going to come and stand and bang with him, isn't he? Like he could wrestle if he wanted to, in any of his fights, but he doesn't. He just comes in and he wants to be the crowd pleaser. He wants to be the company guy. He's sacrificing his own brain health for the sake of it, and he's been losing fights. But I think he presents a good bit of danger for Conor too. Like I think everyone focuses on Conor's the way to beat him is to take him down, and we've never really seen that. Like even the Nate Diaz fight back, the first Nate Diaz fight, I'll say to this day, it wasn't Nate Diaz's grappling that won him that fight. It was his boxing. He tagged him up on the feet, and then Conor shot for the takedown. Like he had him hurt on the feet. So, and it was the same with Poirier. Like he hurt him on the feet. It'll be interesting. Does Conor's chin still hold up? I think he's the better striker. But if Chandler lands one of those big right hands, big overhand rights, it could be night. So I think someone's getting knocked out in this one. I think I would probably lean. I'd probably lean Chandler, if I'm honest with you, purely because I think he's been the more dedicated athlete the last number of years. Now, if Conor can be fully immersed, as he said, then I do think he is at his best a far superior fighter to Michael Chandler. So if he can get back to the Conor McGregor of a couple of years ago, then sure, we could be seeing a knockout for McGregor. But tough one. I think it's a 50-50 fight, really.
Yeah, especially right now. We'll see what happens when that fight happens. Listen, you guys over at Severe MMA, and I know you do work with My MMA News as well. I'm almost jealous of the team that you guys have at Severe MMA, yourself included. I'm never one to kind of sit on this podcast and say, "Oh, I'm jealous of you," but I just love the work that you do. And as I've had over the past few years, this passion and almost dedication to trying to be the American guy covering Irish MMA fighters, I'm not doing enough of it, and you guys really carry the torch and kind of pave the way for guys like me. So my hat tip to you, and a big just overall appreciation for the work you guys do there at Severe MMA. And it's really a dream team over there, and the way you guys do your coverage in Irish MMA. And you can follow Andy on Twitter at AndySTE123, and check out the All Triangle podcast as well. Andy, I really hope it's not months before or a year before we talk again, man. I'm telling everyone.
You're gonna have to start teaching me about Chicago MMA at some point there as well.
There's none. There's literally none. There's none. Everyone that kind of has been big here, I'm just trying to think of names off the top of my head. Daniel James just fought in Bellator. He got a win, but he's kind of older. Curtis Blades is from here, but he's in Colorado. Bilal Muhammad is from here, but Bilal may be the one and only, but there's no regional promotions here. All of them have disappeared. Yeah, they're all in like
Is there any
Indiana.
in Illinois in general or no?
Not, I mean, there's a few. There's like Fight Card Entertainment. I believe that's where Curtis came up through. But there used to be others. You know, Jose Shorty Torres was a part of
Mm,
it. Pearl Gonzalez was a part of it. But it seems like anyone that has success in Chicago always moves away from Chicago. And I think part of it has to do with you can't be focused in a city like this, especially there's so much crime going on here. It's really ridiculous. So
mm.
many fighters are like, yeah, I need to get out of here just to focus on my family and my career. So I don't blame them, but there's really nothing. And honestly, I've been kind of very open about it. I have considered all of my options, including kind of intruding on the Irish landscape. If my life were ever to take that turn, I could pack up and leave tomorrow. But you know, there's just nothing here. There's
Mm.
nothing here. And when I look even in the States, yeah, there's so many big gyms, so many big teams, and so many great fighters that come out of these gyms and these teams and these camps all over the country. But there's really nothing, and this is why I called it the Super Bowl when we talked about Bellator 291. There is really nothing in this world to me that compares to the Irish fan base, the Irish heritage, and mixed martial arts fighters and boxers for that matter. It just doesn't get any better. When we talk about this sport, I think it starts and ends with the above all class being Irish fighters, Irish fan base, Irish heritage. I just love it. I just love it. So that's why I love all you guys at Severe MMA. Make sure to give them a follow. Subscribe to Andy and his work. And man, I can't thank you enough for coming on. And
No, thank you, Mike, and keep up the
I'll
great work.
continue to be jealous, man.
You're doing Trojan work, so keep it up.
I'll try. This
Yeah.
event has definitely brought out the best in me to start 2023. So I'm definitely excited for it. We got to have a fight night, Bellator 291 on February 25th. Andy Stevenson, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.